which I came back, I think it was in September, October. No, it was maybe December. And I enrolled at Long Beach 2 months later, and that was way too soon for me to get back to school, because I still hadn't resolved a lot of issues about being in the war. And shortly after February, I think it was in March, Nixon did the illegal bombing of Cambodia, sparked national protests in all the major campuses. And there was a demonstration at Long Beach. And that's when I started by hooking up with some friends that I grew up with that were students at Long Beach, and the Asian American Student Alliance and the Asian American Studies, that I got more informed about what's happening with the war, what's happening with the United States and its political policies, economic policies. And that started finally turning me around. Because up until then, I didn't have any strong feelings about America's involvement. I just didn't think about it. But when I got to the Asian American Studies and taking the class, the information was very valuable to me, and it made more sense about what's going on, and so I became more of an anti-war activist then. A few months later, Pat Sumi, who was an activist working at kind of a GI coffee shop situation in Oceanside. It was like getting Marines to come in, and if they're having problems, to talk with other people and have support system for people that were against the war, which is a tough thing to do in the Marine Corps. But one day there was a drive-by, and Pat's husband got shot in the stomach. And from that day, they decided to close that house down. And she came up to L.A. She's originally from Silver Lake. And she came to Jack's office, and we met. And from that day, I started working with Pat. And that just changed everything. I became Marxist-Leninist. I studied. I was very seriously against the war. And the first event that I participated in was Peace Sunday, which was at the Biltmore Bowl. And it probably was very expensive. I don't know who paid for it. It was hundreds of people. It was packed. And I think it was Spark Matsunaga spoke. I think Warren spoke. And they had me speak about my experiences. And I was trying to inform people about what they don't hear about the war, and to discourage other Asian Americans from becoming a part of that war machine. And then Pat came, and we started AMMO. And
what did that stand for?
The Asian Movement for Military Outreach, which is it's a stretch, but at the time it was quick to remember.
Yeah.
So we didn't think about it too much. And everybody that heard that afterwards knew who we were. Not everybody, but many people. We had initially about 20 guys, and they're Chinese American, Filipino American, Japanese American vets. We also had civilian volunteers who were doing draft counseling and referring legal issues to lawyers in the white anti-war movement. So we did a bunch of educational kinds of activities. We called them teach-ins. And we would go to schools and churches and community centers and show films anti-war films about Vietnam. Vets would speak, Vietnam veterans would speak, and we would again encourage people not to become a part of this war, fight against the war, support the people of Vietnam. Our main message at that time was not to bring the boys home. It's okay, you bring them home, but our message was to stop killing the Vietnamese people. That's one thing the American anti-war movement could not grasp, is they were more concerned about bringing these Americans home, stopping Americans from being killed, and we would take it to an international level. There was Henry O'Maury, Candace Murata, and myself from the Community Workers Collective. We had a group of organizers and activists living in a collective. And the three of us decided we wanted to focus on the West Side and youth. So that was approved by the Community Workers Collective leadership, and we were taking on the assignment of starting a study group. And Scott and Herman Liu, and I forget all their names. There was a very solid group of 7 or 8 high school students that we would meet with at least once a week for several weeks, that culminated there at LA High in a walkout, which they took down the American flag, put up the NLF flag, and they got the whole student body to walk out, and it was leadership of the Asian American students at LA High School, and it was like great, and we encouraged it. We gave them tools, but they did all the stuff, right? And this gave leadership, a core group of high school students the confidence and the leadership skills to go in and establish this action on Nisei Week. And because Henry and I were involved with the other group, the Thai Bin, Candace, who was supposed to be with us, was worried and concerned about these students and what was happening. She stayed down on the street with them to make sure that they didn't get messed around. Of course, it wasn't for her to do, but and we respected that, so she was down there.
In April, there was a big anti-war march on Wilshire Boulevard. You guys are part of that too. I saw pictures of Russell, different people doing like security duty.
Right. AMO was, okay, that march, probably the largest political march in LA. I don't know, you heard different numbers, like 300,000, 500,000. All I know is by the time the march went down Wilshire and reached MacArthur Park, there were still people that hadn't started on Crenshaw and Wilshire. So that's how many people were, and it was across the whole street. It wasn't like single file.
Right.
We took over the leadership of this march, and we went to the front, and we just started moving, and we had this. Actually, I made that banner. I painted that banner. It's about 30 feet long, and we carried it as the front of the march, and then AMO was the security for the front and the ensuing coming march stuff. Right. After the, it's kind of like the war ended in '75. The U.S. pulled out, so it kind of ended. Our purpose was no longer the same, and we kind of just disbanded. And we just kept it in touch with each other individually, but there was no longer a war to protest or